I used to believe that the worst kind of pain came from arguments, misunderstandings, or the slow drift that happens in long marriages. But I was wrong. The worst pain is the kind you never even see coming. My name is Daniel Hartley, and last month, on a quiet Thursday night while I was working my usual night shift, I learned something about my wife that tore straight through every certainty I had about our life together. She never knew I fixed our doorbell camera. Not once. And honestly, I wish I had left it broken. Because at 1:39 a.m., that tiny blinking light captured something, someone, that shattered me in ways I still can't fully explain. And the moment I replayed that footage, everything I thought I understood about our marriage collapsed in seconds. If you think you're prepared for what happened next, you're not. Stay with me. My name is Daniel Hartley, and for most of my adult life, I lived by routines. Not because I loved them, but because they kept everything predictable, safe, manageable. I'm 38 years old, a night shift supervisor at St. Mary's Logistics Center here in Cleveland, Ohio. I've worked the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift for almost 6 years now. Same schedule, same route to work, same thermos of coffee, same quiet drive home watching the sun rise. And until recently, I thought I had the same predictable marriage. It was April 3rd, 2022, when things first felt different. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone else would notice. But sometimes the smallest cracks are the ones that end up splitting the entire foundation. My wife, Emily, is 35. She works as a marketing coordinator for a regional insurance firm. Day shifts, mostly remote. Technically, she had more flexibility than I did. More control over her hours, her schedule, her evenings. And maybe that's why I noticed her new routine before she realized I was even paying attention. It started subtly. For the past 3 weeks, she'd head out around 9:30 p.m., usually right before I left for work, saying she wanted to get a little fresh air or clear her head before winding down for the night. That wasn't like her. Emily used to hate going out at night. She always said she felt safer at home, watching TV or reading on the couch. But suddenly, these nightly walks became a priority. Rain, cold, wind. It didn't matter. She always left around the same time, and she always returned just after 10:10 p.m. Consistent. Too consistent. One night, around April 5th, she came home from one of those walks smiling to herself. Not at me. Not at something I said. Just smiling down at the floor, as if replaying a private memory. I asked jokingly what was so funny. She froze for just a second too long, and said, "Oh, just something I remembered from work." But I know Emily. I know her expressions. And that wasn't a work smile. That was the first moment I felt that little pinprick in my chest. The one you try to ignore, because the alternative is too painful to consider. For months, our front doorbell camera hadn't been working. The wiring was old, and every time I said I'd get around to fixing it, something else came up. A broken pipe in the basement, car repairs, double shifts. The camera was just one more project I pushed aside. But after that night, the broken camera suddenly felt like a missing piece. On April 7th, I left for work around 9:20 p.m. as usual. Emily had already put on her sneakers for her walk. As I stepped out the door, the faint smell of a new perfume lingered on her. Something floral, something expensive, something she'd never worn in the 12 years I'd known her. I turned back and asked, "New scent?" She glanced down at herself and shrugged. "A sample from work." Another answer too quick, too tidy. That whole night at work, I kept checking my phone out of habit, even though there was nothing to check. No notifications, no camera alerts, nothing but silence from a home that suddenly felt unfamiliar. When I returned just after 6:30 a.m., I saw something that cemented a thought I had been trying desperately to avoid. On the small wooden bench next to our entryway, the one where we dropped mail and keys, I saw a faint scuff mark. Black rubber. Not from Emily's shoes. I knew every pair she owned. I knew the sound of her steps on the hardwood floor. This scuff was different. Too large, too deep. Someone had been there. And no, I didn't jump to conclusions. I'm not that kind of man. But when I asked Emily casually the next day if anyone had passed by, she said, "No one at all." Why? And again that heartbeat pause before her answer, as if she was calibrating what to say. I brushed it off, told her I just noticed something odd. She nodded and went back to her laptop, but her shoulders were tense the rest of the morning. That was when I made my decision. On April 9th, right before my shift, I took out my old toolbox from the garage. The doorbell camera was still sitting in place, disconnected, lifeless. I'd taken it down months ago, convinced it needed replacement, but the truth was, it just needed rewiring and a new capacitor. I didn't tell Emily I was fixing it. She was inside folding laundry, humming to herself. Something she hadn't done in a while. It took me around 45 minutes to rewire the camera and get it online again. When the small blue LED blinked to life, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Not because I expected to see anything, but because, deep down, I already feared I might. At 9:10 p.m., I tested the feed from my phone. Crisp image, clear audio, motion detection working. Emily walked past the entryway without even glancing at the camera. She didn't notice it was fixed. She didn't notice the light. She didn't notice anything had changed. At 9:30 p.m., right on cue, she grabbed her jacket and said she was heading out for her walk. And for the first time, I watched her leave. Not as a husband preparing for work, but as a man searching for answers. She stepped out the door, pulled it quietly behind her, and walked out of frame. A minute later, the camera sent me its first notification. Motion detected, 9:31 p.m. It was her. But what she did next made my stomach twist. She paused at the edge of the porch, looked over her shoulder, then down the street. She wasn't just going for a walk. She was looking for something, or someone. I should have confronted her right then. But I didn't, because once you ask a question like that, you can't unhear the answer. And so began the night that changed everything. The night after I fixed the camera, I hardly slept. I kept replaying that moment. Emily stepping out, stopping at the porch, scanning the street like she was expecting someone, or making sure no one was watching. By the next morning, I told myself I was overthinking. Long marriages do that to you. You start interpreting harmless habits like they're coded messages. But on April 10th, something happened that pushed me past the line between doubt and certainty. I woke up around 2 p.m., groggy from the night shift, and walked into the kitchen. Emily was already there, dressed in jeans and a blouse, nicer than what she usually wore working from home. She had sprayed that same perfume from a few nights before. The one she said was just a sample. She smiled at me, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile you give a coworker. Polite, empty, functional. "I'm heading out for a bit," she said casually, grabbing her purse. I frowned. "This early?" She hesitated for a breath. "Just errands." Something was off. Emily hated running errands. She always waited for me to do them. But before I could ask anything else, she slipped out the door. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, staring at the empty space she'd left behind. Then, without even thinking, I opened my phone and checked the camera feed. She was gone. But at the edge of the frame, halfway down the walkway, I noticed her adjusting her hair and checking her reflection in her phone. She only did that when she was nervous or excited. A cold feeling started spreading across my chest. I put the phone down, tried to shake it off, tried to be rational. Marriages evolve, people change, but change doesn't usually feel like a secret. That evening when she came home, she was quiet, too quiet. Whenever I asked how her day was, she brushed it off. When I tried to touch her shoulder, she stiffened. She wasn't pulling away physically. She was pulling away emotionally. That's the kind of distance you can't argue with. Then came April the 12th, the night everything inside me finally snapped. Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone, when a notification lit up her screen. She tilted it away from me quickly like a reflex. Not the reflex of someone with nothing to hide. "What was that?" I asked. "Work. Too fast. Too sharp." "Let me see." Her eyes widened. "Daniel, seriously?" She clutched the phone like I was trying to steal it. That's when the argument began. "What's going on with you lately?" I asked. "Nothing," she repeated. "I'm fine." "You've been going on walks every night. You're distant. You're different." She stood up suddenly, frustration spilling over. "You don't get to question my every move just because you're suspicious." Suspicious? That word hit me harder than it should have. "I'm not suspicious," I said quietly. "I'm worried." "Then stop," she shot back. "You're smothering me." Smothering? Emily used to crave closeness, affection, connection. Hearing her say that felt like a stranger was speaking through her mouth. She grabbed her phone and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I sat on the couch for a long time, staring at my hands, at the wall, at the clock ticking past 9:14 p.m. That was the moment I realized two terrifying things. First, that my wife was hiding something. Second, that she no longer cared if I noticed. The next morning, I stepped outside to grab the mail. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, was watering her flowers. She smiled sweetly at me. "Ran into your wife last night," she said. "Didn't know she had company at that hour." My stomach dropped. "Company?" "Oh, yes," she replied casually. "Saw someone walking up your driveway when she came back from her walk." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My hands went cold. Mrs. Callahan continued. "Tall man, hoodie. Didn't get a good look. I just assumed it was a family friend." Family friend. We had no family friends who visited, and certainly none who came at 10 p.m. when I was at work. I thanked her and walked inside, heart pounding. That's when the decision formed. Clear as day. I couldn't keep guessing. I couldn't keep living in my own imagination. I needed the truth, whatever it was. So on April 14th, just a few hours before my night shift, I double-checked the doorbell camera wiring, updated the firmware, set up motion alerts, ensured the cloud storage was syncing properly. If someone stepped onto that porch, I would know. At 6:45 p.m., everything was ready. Emily made dinner that night, a simple pasta dish. She barely spoke. When she did, her voice was flat, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. At 9:15 p.m., she said she was stepping out for her walk. My phone buzzed almost immediately with the first motion alert. I watched her leave the house again. Same steps, same glance down the street, same nervous breath. When she disappeared from the frame, I slipped on my coat and headed to work. The whole drive, I couldn't shake the thought that something irreversible was coming, something that would either break me or finally set me free. At 10:17 p.m., as I was checking the inventory sheets in the warehouse break room, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. 10:17 p.m. My heartbeat spiked. I tapped the notification, and that moment was the beginning of the end. When the motion alert hit my phone at 10:17 p.m., I felt something inside me tighten, like a warning, like my body knew before my mind did, that whatever I was about to see would change everything. I stepped into the warehouse break room, away from the echo of forklifts and the hum of conveyor belts. Under those harsh fluorescent lights, I opened the notification. The screen loaded, and there she was. Emily, standing on our porch in her jacket, hands fidgeting with the zipper, shifting her weight anxiously from foot to foot. She wasn't stretching for her walk. She wasn't tying her shoelaces. She was waiting for someone. My pulse thudded in my ears as I watched her. At 10:17 p.m., she kept glancing toward the street, then back at the door, our door, like she was torn between leaving and staying. She took a breath, whispered something I couldn't make out, then walked off the porch and out of frame. The clip ended. I sat there, my phone trembling slightly in my hand, trying to convince myself that maybe she'd just forgotten something. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe. But the lie wouldn't stick. Because you know when something is wrong, even before you have proof. I forced myself back into routine, inventory checks, schedules, emails, but every few minutes my eyes flickered to my phone. No new alerts, just silence, a silence that felt heavier with each passing second. Then, it happened, 12:04 a.m., another buzz, another notification. Motion detected, 12:04 a.m. My throat tightened. I tapped it instantly. The footage loaded slowly, too slowly, and there at the edge of the frame a figure appeared. A tall man, hood up, hands in pockets. He walked straight toward the porch like he had done it before, and with every step he took my stomach dropped lower and lower. He wasn't lost. He wasn't delivering something. He wasn't looking around like he'd taken a wrong turn. He walked up with purpose. He knew exactly where he was going. My heart hammered so hard I thought the guys in the warehouse would hear it. I leaned closer to my phone, eyes locked on the screen. At 12:04 a.m., the man stood on my porch. On the porch I built, the home I worked night after night to provide for us. He didn't knock. He didn't call. He just waited, like Emily had earlier, like they had agreed on a time. The clip cut off, the way short motion-triggered recordings do, but the notification history showed another clip only minutes later. I tapped it with shaking fingers. This time, Emily appeared. 12:07 a.m. She opened the door slowly, carefully, almost like she didn't want the hinges to creak. She stepped out onto the porch and closed the door gently behind her. She hugged her arms around herself, not from cold. Her movements were too controlled, too rehearsed. The man reached for his hood and pulled it back. My heart stopped, not because I recognized his face, but because Emily did. Her body softened, completely. Shoulders relaxed, breath released. She looked relieved to see him. You don't look at a stranger like that. You don't look at a coworker like that. You don't look at anyone like that unless they mean something. They talked, but the camera didn't pick up everything. The wind carried their words in broken fragments. I pressed the volume to max, leaned closer, tried to read their lips. Some moments came through clearly. She said his name softly, too softly. She stepped closer to him, too close. And then I heard it. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet sentence carried by the microphone like a knife sliding between ribs. I can't tell him yet. My chest caved in. I paused the video, rewound, played it again. I can't tell him yet. Tell me what? Tell me what? That replayed in my mind like an echo chamber. I felt like the air was thin, like I couldn't get enough in. I pressed the phone to my forehead, eyes burning. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't in my head. Something was happening behind my back, right there on the porch of my own home, while I was at work lifting pallets and checking shipments and trying to be a good husband. I hit play again. Emily looked over her shoulder, toward the door, toward the camera she thought was broken, and whispered, "Not after everything he's done for me." My hands went numb. Everything I've done for her. The years of night shifts, the bills, the house renovations, the late-night grocery runs, the emotional support, the loyalty, the sacrifices. What was she hiding that I didn't deserve to know? The man touched her arm gently, comfortingly. She didn't pull away. If you've ever loved someone who suddenly looks at somebody else with softness, you know that pain. It's not loud, it's not violent, it's quiet. A quiet tearing that spreads through your chest like fire. Another clip triggered at 1:39 a.m. This was the one that broke me. Emily's voice was clearer this time. The camera caught the angle better. The man stood closer to the microphone, and I heard her say, "I just don't want him to find out this way." Find out what way? And the man replied, he will, sooner or later. My vision blurred. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My entire body felt hollow, as if all the warmth had drained from me at once. I sat in that break room, long after the footage ended, staring at my reflection in the black screen. Who was I in that moment? A husband? A fool? A man already betrayed without knowing the details? I don't remember the rest of the shift. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is walking through that front door at 4:52 a.m., exhausted, broken, and terrified. Terrified of what I would find. Terrified of what she would say. Terrified of the truth. And waiting for me in the living room was Emily, wide awake, as if she knew I'd seen everything. When I pushed open the front door at 4:52 a.m., I expected silence. Darkness, the soft hum of the refrigerator, maybe the faint rustle of blankets from our bedroom. But instead, Emily was sitting on the living room couch, fully awake, hands clasped tightly in her lap, like she hadn't slept at all, like she'd been waiting for something, or someone. Her eyes lifted the moment I stepped inside, and what I saw in them wasn't guilt. It was fear, not fear of me, fear of what I now knew. Dan, she whispered, voice trembling just enough to crack. We need to talk. I dropped my keys on the table, the sound sharp in the stillness. I didn't explode. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. The truth was, I was too tired to react like a man betrayed. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped everything out of me during that shift, leaving only the shell behind. Who is he? I asked quietly. Emily's breath hitched, a tiny, helpless sound. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers until her knuckles went white. I knew you'd see it eventually, she murmured. I should have told you sooner. That would have been nice, I said, the bitterness slipping out before I could stop it. Her eyes watered, not dramatically, not for sympathy, but the way someone looks when they're carrying a truth that's too heavy to keep holding. His name is Mark, she said. I waited for the stab, the final blow, the admission. He's my ex, she continued, voice barely audible. From before you and I met. Ex? The word settled strangely, not comforting, not relieving, not clarifying, just confusing. She noticed the look on my face and quickly added, It's not what you think, Dan. I swear to you, it's not an affair. If she had screamed those words, maybe I would have believed her more. But the quiet, earnest tone, that startled me. Then what is it? I asked. She swallowed hard. He showed up 2 weeks ago, out of nowhere. I didn't even know he still lived in Ohio. Why was he at our house? I pressed. Twice, at night. Her voice broke. Because he's sick. I blinked. Sick? Emily nodded, wiping her cheek with her sleeve. He has late-stage lymphoma. They don't think he has long. A cold stillness spread through me. That wasn't the twist I expected, not even close. I didn't want to believe him, she continued, but he showed me the medical files, the treatment schedule, everything. I rubbed my temples, trying to make sense of the pieces. Why come to you? Her answer cut deeper than any confession of cheating could have. Because once, a long time ago, I was the only family he had. Before things fell apart between us. Before everything changed. The room felt heavier. So you started meeting him, behind my back, I said slowly. I didn't want to worry you, she whispered, and I didn't know how to explain it without hurting you. I laughed softly, but it wasn't a happy sound. Emily, you think watching him come to our house in the middle of the night didn't hurt me? Her chin crumpled. I know it looks terrible. But I wasn't. I wasn't doing anything with him, Dan, I swear it. I didn't respond. Not because I thought she was lying, but because a different wound had opened. What did you mean? I asked, when you said you can't tell me yet? Her face fell. The color drained from her skin. That, she whispered, that's harder to explain. I waited. Emily took a shaky breath. When Mark reached out to me the first time, I didn't respond. I deleted the message, but he kept trying. For days. I told him I was married. I told him to stop. Clearly he didn't. No, she said, because eventually he mentioned something from our past, something he shouldn't have remembered. I felt my pulse start to climb again. What was it? Emily's voice softened to almost nothing. I wasn't always a good person, Dan. Before you, before us, I made mistakes, and he reminded me that I still owed him closure. That word, closure, hit wrong. A hollow, vague word people use when they want something deeper, something emotional, something intimate. And what exactly did he need closure for? I asked, the steel finally creeping into my voice. Emily closed her eyes. When Mark and I broke up, it wasn't clean. I left without explaining. I hurt him, badly, and he carried that for years. Now that he's dying, he said he wanted to let go of the bitterness. I understood the sentiment, but not the execution. So you met him alone, at night, I said. Multiple times, without telling me. She looked shattered. Because I knew you'd misunderstand. I took a deep breath. Emily. Anyone would misunderstand. She nodded slowly. I know. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. The clock ticked from 4:58 a.m. to 4:59 a.m. The air between us was thick with everything unspoken. Then I asked the question that had been clawing at my chest ever since I heard the recording. And what about when you said, not after everything he's done for me? Was that closure too? Emily's eyes widened with a different kind of pain, a deeper one. That wasn't about him, she said quietly. That was about you. I stiffened. Me? She nodded. Yes, because Mark wanted to meet inside the house. He said it was too cold outside. I refused. I told him I couldn't do that to you, not after everything you've done for me, everything you've sacrificed, everything you've held together for us. The words sank in slowly, uncomfortably, painfully. Not betrayal, not romance. Something else. Something messier. Something murkier. You should have told me, Emily, I whispered. I'm not angry that he's sick. I'm angry that you hid it from me, that you dealt with it alone, that you made me feel like a stranger in my own home. She reached for my hand but stopped halfway, as if unsure she still had the right. I didn't want to add more weight onto your shoulders, she said. You work night shifts. You're exhausted. You're always carrying so much. I didn't want to be a burden. A burden. That word stabbed deeper than any suspicion ever had. In that moment I realized this wasn't a story about cheating. This was a story about distance, about fear, about two people who had slowly become shadows in each other's lives. But the damage was still damage. Mark was dying. Emily was hiding it. And I was caught in the middle of a truth that wasn't romantic betrayal, but emotional betrayal. A betrayal of trust, of communication, of partnership, and it hurt just as much. Maybe more. For a long time after Emily told me everything, I just sat there staring at the floor. The truth didn't feel clean. It didn't feel healing. It didn't feel like an explanation that wiped away the nights of doubt or the sting of seeing another man's shadow on my porch. It felt complicated, and complicated is sometimes worse than clear betrayal. Clear betrayal gives you direction, rage, escape, confrontation, but emotional betrayal, that leaves you suspended, floating, grieving something you can't even name. Emily sat silently across from me, eyes red, hands shaking in her lap. In 12 years of marriage, I had never seen her look so small. Dan, she whispered finally, I know I hurt you. I know I broke something between us, and I don't know how to fix it. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell her I forgave her. I wanted to tell her I didn't. But nothing came out. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I felt. She continued, voice trembling. I should have trusted you with this. I should have told you everything the moment he reached out. I was scared, not of you, but of reopening old wounds, of letting my past bleed into our life. Past. That word again. People think marriage is about combining two lives. But really, it's two pasts, two presents, two fears, two histories trying to coexist without colliding. And Emily's past had finally collided with mine. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. What exactly did he want from you? I asked quietly. Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. He didn't want me back, she said. He didn't ask for anything like that. He just wanted to talk, to let go of anger he carried for years, to apologize for things he'd done, and to hear me acknowledge the pain I caused him. I swallowed hard. So, what happened on the porch? At 1:30 in the morning? Emily shut her eyes. He said he didn't have many nights left where he could walk around without help. He didn't want to meet anywhere crowded. He didn't want people staring. I didn't want to bring him inside because it felt like crossing a line with you. A strange, bitter laugh escaped me. So instead, you crossed a different line. Her eyes filled again. Yes, I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The clock ticked softly in the early morning quiet. 5:12 a.m. The sky outside was turning faint blue. I rubbed my palm against my forehead, trying to ease the pressure pulsing behind my eyes. Why didn't you tell me he was dying? I asked, voice cracking more than I expected. Emily took a long breath. Because, she said, I knew you. I knew you'd tell me to stop seeing him entirely. You'd tell me my loyalty belonged to our marriage, and you would have been right. But if you had said that, I would have felt guilty for the rest of my life. And what about me? I whispered. Did you think I wouldn't feel anything? Watching you slip outside to talk to another man? Hearing you say things I didn't understand? She covered her mouth with both hands, sobbing into them. Not loud, not dramatic, just quietly. Breaking. I never meant to hurt you, Dan, she cried. I was trying to protect you from something painful, but in doing that, I created something even worse. For the first time since watching the footage, tears pricked the corners of my eyes. Not because she had spoken to another man, but because she had shut me out. Completely. I took a deep, shaky breath. What did you mean? I asked when you said, I can't tell him yet. Tell me what? Emily wiped her cheeks, forcing herself to meet my eyes. I meant that I wasn't ready to tell you how lost I've been feeling. I frowned. Lost? She nodded. I've been struggling for months, Dan. Feeling disconnected, like I'm fading into routine, like my days feel identical and empty. And you're always working nights, always exhausted, always carrying everything. I didn't want to add my weight onto your shoulders. Her voice collapsed again. And when Mark resurfaced, all these feelings I'd buried came rushing back. Not love, not romance, just unfinished parts of myself I didn't want you to see. For the first time, something clicked. This wasn't about another man. This wasn't about cheating. This was about my wife being lost, emotionally, mentally, personally, and thinking I couldn't handle the truth. But the truth still hurt. A lot. I sat there for a long moment, letting everything settle, letting the weight of it all sink into my bones. Then I asked the final question. Are you done meeting him? Emily nodded instantly. Yes, completely. He told me what he needed to. I said what I needed to. It's over. And if he messages you again? She hesitated, only for a second, but enough for me to notice. I wouldn't respond, she said, not after this, not after seeing what it did to you. For the first time in days, I believed her. We sat together in a silence that wasn't angry anymore, just exhausted, human, raw. After a long while, Emily whispered, "Do you want me to leave for a few days? Give you space?" I thought about it, really thought about it. But leaving doesn't heal broken communication. It just delays the next fracture. "No," I said quietly. "I want us to talk, really talk, about everything we've been avoiding." She nodded fast, relieved. "I want that, too." The sun began to rise fully, filling the room with pale light. I looked at her. Not the woman on the porch speaking in secrets, not the woman hiding tears behind excuses, not the woman who felt like a stranger these past weeks, but my wife. Flawed, confused, human, and somehow still worth fighting for. I reached for her hand. She gasped softly, like she didn't expect me to. "We're going to be okay," I said. "I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know how many conversations we'll need. But we're not broken. Not yet." Emily squeezed my hand so tightly it almost hurt. "I love you, Dan," she whispered. I never stopped. A tear slipped down my cheek. Not from pain anymore, but from release. "I love you too," I said. And that morning, April 15th, 6:07 a.m., we made a decision. A simple one. To rebuild. Not from betrayal, not from infidelity, but from miscommunication, from silence, from fear, the things marriage is most often destroyed by. The camera had shown me the pieces of a truth, but only we could decide what to build with them. If you've ever been in a moment where one truth changed everything, you know how it feels to question the life you thought you understood. Tell me in the comments. Do you believe emotional secrets can hurt just as much as betrayal? And if you want more real stories like this, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Your support means more than you know. Stay safe, and hold close the people who choose honesty, even when it's hard.